On today's episode of Why Can't I Stop Talking About Pac-Attack, I should probably stop talking about Pac-Attack so much, we have Pac Panic on the Philips CDI. Oh, some of the Japanese and European releases of Pac-Attack were given the name Pac Panic, and since the CDI version was a European exclusive, it too got that name. First of all, setting up CDI emulation is extremely annoying. It was a huge pain to set this up. I was only able to do this because I found a reply to an obscure Reddit thread. Oh yeah, you gotta take these two zip folders, unzip them, take these three from this one zip folder, take two from this other one, zip those together, put this in a folder that you manually create. But I finally got it working, and let's go ahead and play the CDI. Hope the audio's good. The audio did sound good, at least until you get past the Philips Media. And here's a taste of what the gameplay sounds like. Okay, in all fairness, this might be the fault of bad emulation, but it's way funnier to imagine the audio mixing person being like, wow, what if we separated the music and sound effects so that no matter how loud the sound effects get, you can always hear the music? Genius! And boy, do those sound effects get loud. They somehow distilled the over-animated uncanniness that the CDI is known for into these tiny little sprites, which is honestly pretty impressive. On the difficulty selection screen, you can really judge the level of panic by how much Pac-Man's shoes face inward. Let's go ahead and boot up Whistling Easy Mode. Needless to say, if I could whistle, I certainly would be right about now. This is the absolute fastest I can make these pieces fall. There's a slight change in the falling speed, as well as complementary bonus points for holding down. True to its older counterparts, Pac-Man spawns as a singular piece at level 0. Oh, and for some reason, the Pac-Man piece falls even slower. Alright, let's go ahead and dive into full panic mode. Panic mode, aka not hyper mode, plays at a much more reasonable speed and has the usual 6 pieces per Pac-Man. Though it may be too fast for the game to handle since holding down has literally no effect on falling speed. But it still gives you extra points, funnily enough. That's right, holding down is effectively the free points button. Not that it matters a whole lot, because by starting on panic mode, they automatically give you 2 million points by default. I ate an entire 4 ghosts. In the original versions of Pac-Attack, the level counter, as well as the difficulty, will continue to increase until level 999. Unfortunately, there is no secret difficulty to speak of, so starting at level 900 is out of the question. But it's safe to assume that after a few hours of playing, the level counter will eventually max out at 999. I feel like at level 150, we're gonna get to 7 PPP. Okay, so slight problem with this theory that I want to test. As it turns out, I have already reached the maximum level. Level 114 is the highest this counter will go. It took me a solid 10 minutes to even realize this. How am I only at level 114? I've been going for like 10 years. I think it's stuck? Wait, don't tell me. Does the level counter end at 114? Unless... what if the level counter doesn't visually update, but like internally in the game's code it's still going up? Turns out this theory of mine was partially correct. The level does continue to increase internally, however, the difficulty never increases beyond 6 pieces per Pac-Man. Normally, this would increase to 7 at level 150, but as you can see, I reached level 178 and no such increase occurred. I'm beginning to see where most of the budget went. The sprite work is really quite good. The ghosts still have their cute animations of looking around and spinning around and just generally dicking around. Curiously, they replaced the usual brown bricks with these wooden boxes. Not sure why they were so keen on pushing the whole box angle. The fairy meter is a bit lazy considering it's only black and white, but at least it's visually clear how full it is. Speaking of fairies, I'm happy to say that fairy canceling still exists. When it decides to work anyway. I was pressing it! It's impossible to convey how unresponsive the controls can be. This is something I will blame on the CDI itself and not the emulator, because CDI controls, as well as their controllers, are notoriously ass garbage. I'm not even getting the true experience by using a plug-and-play SNES controller instead of the old spoon remote. With the input for fairy canceling being especially unresponsive, you're better off using the alternative method of placing a fairy on the bottom row if a spot is available. No matter what difficulty you select, it's always the same "Let's Rock" background image. However, the puzzle mode carries on the tradition of a different background for every 10 levels. Some of these are genuinely pretty cool, like the feathered cap Pac-Man from Pac-Land. Puzzle mode has the exact same levels and passwords as the Genesis version, so this mode's gotta be a slam dunk overall, right?
No.
I am literally holding down, and this is the fastest these pieces will go. This is agony. Strangely, the Pac-Man pieces that wouldn't fall much faster in normal mode are the only pieces that you can speed up to some extent. Again, this might be an emulator issue since I've seen footage online of the down button actually working, it's actually working, but I don't know how much that really matters if owning a working CDI console in current year is already a Herculean task. But alright, I can already see the comments saying this isn't a very fair review for not playing on official hardware, and these are just emulator issues. And you know what? I'll give you that. Let's say that the puzzle mode is actually good and the standard mode is functional apart from the level counter. This next thing, however, is, well, let's just say it's the entire reason that I had to make this video. It's time we talk about what Pac-Attack is perhaps best known for, the thrilling multiplayer versus mode.
I'm having a Pac-Attack right.
Now this is honestly the major selling points of the game for this console. The CDI has a very small library of games that have full-fledged multiplayer support. Oftentimes the ones that do, like Hotel Mario, are simply 2 players taking turns doing single player. RetroGamer.net places Pac Panic as one of the top 10 games for the CDI. With standard, puzzle, and 2-player modes, there's plenty of replay value to be had. Well, there's a slight problem with that. You see, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it turns out that versus mode doesn't even exist. This menu option is presumably the versus mode, and I can't even select it. Let me get a second controller really quick. So I plugged in my X-Bone controller, configured all the settings, and still nothing. Oh yeah, and that footage that I've been showing? That's from one of the demos that plays when the game is left idle for long enough. There is no existing footage of this mode anywhere on the entire internet that's not from this demo. The only exception being this screenshot on the back of the CD case. Fight to the finish in 2-player head-to-head action. They promise a 2-player mode 5 different times across 4 different languages, and it doesn't even exist. Wait a minute, that screenshot is just taken from the Genesis version. Who dropped the ball on getting versus mode into the game? Was it you, Andy Morton? Perhaps Tom Illogical Drummond? Was it the Friends of Pac-Man? Well hey, at least Johnny Censored Wood had some cool artwork. Well, that's where the video was gonna end, but I'm afraid there's more to this story. From the get-go, I was definitely skeptical about my assertion that versus mode wasn't in the game. As tempting as it was to take my emulator experience at face value since it makes for good content, I wanted to do everything in my power to not spread misinformation on the internet. I mean, what would they stand to gain from pretending to have multiplayer? To impress their shareholders or something? Hi, I am literally Sherlock. Let's solve a mystery. My quest began innocently enough on July 8th, 5 days after my Pac Panic stream. I created 2 separate Reddit threads to see if anyone could possibly help me out. Just when it seemed hopeless and that I'd never get a response, I received a notification from our Pac-Man. This was surprising considering that this subreddit is significantly smaller than retro gaming, but perhaps it was the niche fandom that was exactly what I needed to solve this mystery. Happy Cake Day. Really? Just Happy Cake Day? That's it? Happy Cake Day. Alright. There's your Happy Cake Day. I had to dig deeper, but really wanted to avoid shelling out hundreds of dollars if at all possible. Need I remind you that James Rolfe himself didn't find a functional CDI until his 3rd attempt, and that was 15 years ago. 1 week later, and with my Reddit account gone, I devised the YouTube stratagem. Seek out videos of CDI game collections, see if they own Pac Panic, and hope they actively check their own comment section. That's when I came across WaltVS, who boasts an impressive collection in his own right.
Bro.
I got you, man. I'll check it out later today to see if it's available. And check it out he did. Ultimately, he found the mode with the 2 ghosts, but could not press any button to start the game. I pressed him a bit further for some clarification, and sure enough, he encountered the exact same issue on physical hardware as I did on emulator. He unfortunately had no way of testing this with 2 controllers plugged in, since his model of CDI only had 1 controller port. It seemed he wanted to figure this out as desperately as I did, but had no such luck. This was genuinely the point where I thought it was case closed. I'll go on making the rest of my Pac Panic video the way I originally intended, and that would be that. So I happily went along with the rest of the editing process. By the early 20s of July, I had nearly finished my video when total disaster struck. On a complete whim, I figured, may as well check out these old Reddit threads again just to make sure. It must be an emulator issue. I have a CDI with Pac Panic and the multiplayer works fine. It was 9 days before I finally saw this. I was mortified. I had just spent hours crafting this video around a narrative that might be completely fabricated. So I devised the Reddit stratagem Mark II. Embarrassingly log into my alt accounts to press further. I needed some kind of picture or video proof to back up this outrageous claim. The days went by with no response. Let me clarify exactly what's going on here. My video is being held hostage by a Pac-Man superfan claiming against the conclusion that I hastily jumped to because of my own hubris. How did I get myself into this situation? Impatience finally got the best of me when I hatched a stratagem of desperation. I'll give you $50. To be honest, I nearly put $1,000 here. I was so confident I was right. Why does the back of the CD case show the 16-bit version and not the CDI version? How come the demo shows the most bland gameplay possible that doesn't even show any ghosts being sensed to either side? Top that all off with the menu option not giving any feedback, not even a simple noise. Later that evening, I was taking care of some important business when suddenly, a Reddit notification. I stared in disbelief. I completely tensed up, my fingers trembled, and I reluctantly opened it up. And with a simple Dropbox link, all of my preconceived notions would completely shatter before me. It had everything. 4 different video clips, including menu options, ghost being sent to the opposing side, end screens, and even a fairy. For the first time ever, the internet could finally witness the versus mode from CDI Pac-Attack. And the best part? They didn't even need my $50. Massive shoutouts to AshumBesher for being super cool about this and preventing me from spreading misinformation. As it turns out, you need a physical CDI console with 2 controller ports and 2 working controllers for this to work. I guess RetroArch CDI emulation doesn't yet have 2-player compatibility? Unless I'm too dumb to figure it out, I don't know. Well, I sincerely owe an apology to any developers or friends of Pac-Man I may have called out. The majority of issues I encountered, from the sound quality, I literally pressed the input to the down button not working. Their brains were just like this slow at figuring out the puzzle that it seemed fine to them, to entire modes not existing, so it doesn't work, were the fault of bad emulation. I can't believe I'm saying it, but Pac Panic on the Philips CDI is genuinely a pretty solid port. Except for the 114 level cap thing, that's pretty goddamn terrible. Special thanks to Karma1233, Tingly Jungle, Lilin, James W, Tubosaurus Rex, Cal Knickerbocker, Legman, and the rest of my friends over on Patreon. Peace.